When I walked out on Easter week, it was in a kind of starry-eyed idea that anything was possible.
It is a moment of very much cultural ferment. There were people writing poetry, reading poetry, vast engagement, of course, with the Irish language.
We can think of it as a poet's rising because they imagined an Ireland into being.
100 years on from the Rising, it's our turn to kind of figure out a way forward by, I suppose, having a look back and a look around us where we are now and how we got here and where we'd like to go.
To discover the life of James Connolly is pinning down things like his internationalism. He was at a very, very interesting moment in history because he actually did believe, of course, that a great workers' revolution was inevitable and that it would succeed. And unfortunately, we can see what happened to that. We're in a different position. So I suppose I was trying to calibrate the gap between where we are and where he was. So it's an attempt to look at the intellectual problem of what do you do about systems? What can one person do? What can a small group of people do? What should we do? When I think of all the false beginnings, the man was a pair of hands, the woman another pair to be had more cheaply. The wind blew, the children were thirsty. When he passed by the factory door, he saw them. They were moving and then waiting, as many as the souls that crowded by Dante's boat that never settled in the water. What weight to ballast that ferry? They are there now, as many as the souls blown by the winds of their desire, the airs of love, not one of them weighing 1 ounce against the tornado that lifts the lids off houses, that spies where they crouch together inside until the wind sucks them out. It is only wind, but what braced muscle, what earthed foot can stand against it? What voice so loud as to be heard shouting enough? He had driven the horse in the rubbish cart. He knew the strength in the neck under the swishing mane. He knew how to tell her to turn, to back, or stand. He knew where the wind hailed from. He studied its language. It blew in spite of him. He got tired waiting for the wind to change. As we are exhausted waiting for that change, for the voices to shout enough, for the hands that can swing the big lever and send the engine rolling away to the place we saw through the gap in the bone, where there was a painted room, music, and the young people dancing on the shore, and the old man of the sea had been sunk in the wide, calm sea. The sea moves under the wind and shows nothing, not where to begin. But look for the moment just before the wave of change crashes and goes into reverse. Remember the daft beginnings of a fatal century and their sad endings, but let's not hold back our hand from the lever. Remember James Connolly, who put his hand to the work, who saw suddenly how his life would end, and was content because men and women would succeed him, and his testament was there. He trusted them. It was not a bargain. In 1916, the printer locked the form. He set it in print. The scribes can't alter an iota. Then the reader comes, and it flowers again like a painted room.
The fact that Pearse was himself a poet makes it even more daunting. One doesn't, of course, want to begin to impersonate his poetic voice. At least I didn't want to try to do that. I'm not sure if I could. So what I tried to do was to find a voice for him which is not untrue to what might have been going through his head, not untrue to the rhythms of Irish speech, not untrue to some of the colloquialisms that he might have used. They're just about to leave the GPO. He doesn't know what's going to befall him. So it's just at that moment where they're really about to step out and in to history. It's good to see a number of St. Enda's boys willing to volunteer, displaying something like defiance when we've too often been content to deploy ourselves in Turkey to philander as sappers and sepoys on the battlefields of France. His ankle shattered, Connolly has commandeered 2 girls from Cumann to dance attendance on him. No less ungainly, I look askance at a young man whose mouth is smeared with fresh strawberries. His lifeblood itself sapped while British soldiers jeered. Another's arm is as obstreperous, having just veered off the stretcher to which he's strapped, as if to mock the verities. One by one, they've heard their names called and snapped to attention. Ferdia after Ferdia falling wrapped before Cuchulainn at a ford. The frame of a butcher's bicycle is listing so badly, one of its legs is surely as game as Connolly's. It's all but Pascal, this orange-black flame that hastens still through the GPO. Even if the British artillery have been inclined to greet my earlier manifestos with a salvo of their own, the O'Rahilly is determined to show that if we don't share the sweet taste of victory, at least for now, we may find joy in our retreat to the Williams and Woods jam factory in Parnell Street.
With Kathleen Lynn, she's one of these fascinating characters who wasn't only involved in the Rising, but was a woman kind of out of her own time. She was a doctor, she was a feminist, she was a member of the Irish Citizen Army, she founded an infants hospital called St. Ultan's. She never let, I think, the expectations of the time weight her down in the present tense of her own life. Now, with Kathleen Lynn and with a number of other women who were closely involved in the birth of the state, and a number of other people from Protestant backgrounds who were involved in the birth of the state, you start to see these people being written out of history, or you start to see the emergence of a state that just doesn't have a place for them. They become kind of dispossessed within their own country. What would drive this doctor to jump out of reason and into the fire of rebellion? Haunted by skulls that boast through the skin of children, ghosting the alleyways, dying young in silent demonstration, I raise my own demonstration against my limits as woman and doctor. I think of those I've watched dying, praise the mercy of gunfire that scythes through women and children. I number those dead, count their skulls. My convictions temper in the fire and quicklime of what follows. The dying man brought out and shot at dawn, the ever-dying Cuchulainn with his necklace of skulls, all that spitting revolutionary fire. And my part in that demonstration won't be forgotten, but as a woman doctor put down to hysteria or a lack of children. For what are women themselves really but children, living and dying without reason. They say a real doctor might cure me, could measure my skull and tell its emptiness, demonstrate my zeal was nothing but a mindless fire. A rebel's dying stokes the nation's fire, but starving children. Ask this doctor to number our gains in skulls. Expect a demonstration.
Wel, ba gine anna neagnácha an rathilach. Bhí anna chud buanaige, bhí bua ceolaige, bhí bua aldaonaige, bhí sinna iriseoir. Léanta an éirí amach, bhí sé tridú bhásacha nó bríon ó bhásacha bheittheige leis an bíorsacha agus daoine. Chuair sé suscatí an píorsacha agus dúirt sé, má tá éine chun mise gáú bar go bheith níos fearr le gona ná mise. So, ní raibh sé I gcéirí rómha leis an dream eile, I ré na seachtainna, bhí sé thuas staire agus ní raibh puin buinteige ó lá go láú. Ach nuair a tháinig sé, gur heasta go dhaoine an go ráidir a rá go gafií an rútharsa a thuairt suas Stráid an Bhórgaigh de heasta agus dúirt sé betsa mar cheannar. Cé gur a bhisaige ná raibh seans ar bith. Can amach anim an rathaigh bír gach ní a dúirt Yeats. Man ar híiseach é ó hús ó rúchas, de bhais sé é héin le fuil. Ba jou le leis an safil dánach a techt go doras an dúna. An raibh bua ar bith de bhuana an dain nach raibhige in éanacht. Má bhí ceolmhatha ba cheoltóir é, de hain an piano is de chanach. Má ba alíonn tóir, de línig sé armas is craobh a ginalig. Bhí sé na aimeanach ina iriseoir, bhí Frankis ar a halige. De thiamnig sé a bhuana go léir de cháitní ghuiir den chúis náisiúnta. Cha sé deire seachtainna omláin na cásca a taistil bóithre na mún, a gur ordú cealathe ag néile bhaim ó chiarí go tibredáran. Mar sin héin nuair a tháinig an luan, is gur thuig sé go raibh an cach coitin. De máin sé go hardifig an fist ina gluisteán de Dion Bouton. Má íríonn éine cad an chúis leis an athhrú, tá a gcuine chud focail. nó gur chabhraíos chun an clog a shocras, tá sé chomh maithagam ag chlas a buala. Ach má tá rudair beag go bhfuil le clú is a cáil a brathar, tá sé mar thora. Ar an bhá a tugach sí Stráid í Bhórga, is é féin I gceannas an rúthar. Bhí daoine níos ciallmhire ná é, a hiag go rúthar é in aisce. Go raibh machine gunna ag arm hasna, a dhéanana kit a fáa dus na fearibh. Ach de heas sé sa bhar na bail, ní amháin gur heas ach de hiúlan, hiag gur gníomh buile a bheith an tairí amach, ach má bheith go bhuile a glórmhar. An lá a chuas a throsisiúlóide, a leanúnt lorag an rathalig, bhí léir siú ar siúl ar fud an bhíl, agus a góid is Stráid an Bhórgaigh. Sé a dúirt muintir na Stráide, is iad a caint go léfa ón Ardán. Gur dínach fallí ar an áit den gnó, is gur bíon stáit a bhí ceantach san éagóir. Ciad blian ó hen le linn an éirí amach de ridimar in aig na Sasnach, inis táimí de gcuine ar muintir a héin, an náir a gamanta, an íróin. Mar de chuoine is láireach ar an bhar, a luafar go dó mar gasciach, a rúthar mire fan na Stráide céanna is clíomh ina lábhaige á bhartú. Nuair a tháinis go dtíon leach comórtha mar a bhfuil fáil ar a scríbhinn dhearnach. Ní éitheann na focail a dhéanamh amach trí bheith geamachéach ó gol is le déistin. A cuiineh ar an bhar is scríg, a fáil bháis go máil is go hanacroch. Né an nuair a chluig diag ag céiliúr, gan ghearán ná éagainn, is fós gan cabhair. Is a deire nuair rug iata an bháis ar a scórnach as gur lorg sé isce, níor scuile ar chuige irid is deor, le tán díaltais agus miscaise. Mar sin canamach anim an rahalig, canamach go deo a glór, an tain duine de cheanarí na cásca a callach ar fórc an áir.
Nurse O'Farrell was a most remarkable character. She was driven to near the other garrisons and then had to brave sniper fire and from volunteers and British Army to carry the surrender order to various garrisons. So she was an extremely brave woman and deserves to be remembered for her courage and for her tenacity and for her fighting spirit. There was a view grew up in the 80s that Nurse Farrell had been airbrushed out of the photograph and airbrushed out of history. But in 1956, she gave an interview where she made it plain that she saw the camera come up and saw it would look bad from a propaganda point of view, the perfectly correct British Brigadier General and Pearse with his nurse, that it would be a considerable propaganda value to what she would consider the enemy. So she stood in behind Pearse, so as to be out of the shot. But she also had another reason, which came down through the family, down through her family lore, which is she had every intention of continuing the struggle, and she thought it would be most unhelpful if the castle authorities had her photograph. Miss, did you hear that, miss? What Commandant Connolly said? A boy oblivious to the leg wound I am binding. When we were coming down Abbey Street, only yesterday, William O'Brien said, "Where are we going, Jim?" And the Commandant's answer, "We are going to be slaughtered." What do you think, miss? Is that the right of it, would you say? His eyes are away, caught by the crash of rifles, of glass sparkling inward from the explosion. He would not hear me if I answered, having just discovered that all of this is actually happening, and to him, here and now. The women bring tea in a bucket, brisk and efficient, smoke-bothered, filthy and cheerful. Dead men piled to the side, we try not to look at them or to breathe when we go near. The wounded, we draw deeper inside, we do what we can to ease their pain. Beside me, an old volunteer reloads, perhaps with bullets I smuggled in. He stands, takes aim, fires. A figure drops outside Cleary's, spasms and flattens out. The flames are struggling to take hold upstairs. The noise, the roar. I had not expected the noise, the stink, the filth of it. Blood, cordite, the toilets blocked, black plaster dust everywhere. Connolly beckoning to Pearse, their bare heads together. A smouldering beam thuds down behind them. Flames lick the air. Break out through Moore Street. Send out the women under a flag. Crowbar and pickaxe work. Save what we can. We won't save you, I think. Keep my counsel. The long retreat inside ourselves has begun. Thunder outside as another building falls, the guns walking their hell steadily towards us. Fire is their answer to our stubborn persistence. They could starve us out if they wished, but some demon drives them. They want we should burn for the sin of pride, rebels against their divine order. To prevent further slaughter. The words are agreed, scrawled out by lamplight. This morning we watched a father and his child waving a soiled bedsheet, gunned down as they ran from shelter. They will not fire on a woman. I mean to remember the man who said that, one of the few poor innocents left. Gathered all I had been until now, my time on earth, stood, smoothed my skirts, pinned up my hair, pierced by the stretcher, sought my eyes. Now, Liz, be of good heart. This is not defeat. We've made a good beginning now. We've carried it to here. I bowed my head. I would not weep. The walls, the roof crashed in. Dead bodies in doorways, on the streets, this I remember, the stench, quick swarming flies. And not just soldiers, volunteers, yes, but ordinary men and women, and children too. My God, the children. I was too horrified to feel fear, but I walked on, a cold prickling like electricity on my skin, walked under the guns, seeing madness in some eyes. I felt strange to myself, pushed out onto a nightmare stage, but rage steadied me when some aide threatened to shoot me. His superior, grim, unbending, severe in his terms, I drew on my own cold reserves. I made him give his word. I caught the flash of sunlight on lens, saw the camera raised and time slowed. I made quick calculation, the general facing Pierce crisp and commanding, our own man upright but wearied by cares, flanked by a nurse, saw what would come of this, to what purpose it could be put. I stepped to one side, stood out of the record, for the dignity of our cause, yes, and for a second reason, one that came suddenly clear. I knew we would fight on, would rise from this burning carnage. I saw no reason the enemy should have my image. I held myself out of their history to make my own.
I have a great kind of ambiguity about the rebellion and the rising. I sometimes worry, like an old County Waterford Redmondite, about the excluding nature of the rising, that it may have excluded whole elements of Irish life and possibilities in Irish life. I would question still whether it was a complete success. I wrote for about a month various things, and then I thought I had the whole thing finished, and then I think I decided it was all rubbish. So I just tore it up. And what I did is I decided just to spend a lot of time in the Garden of Remembrance and just watch. So I spent many days just sitting in the Garden of Remembrance, watching people coming and going. And so I think I re-centered myself as an Irishman through the images. I think I was reconciled to the material of the Garden of Remembrance, more so than I've ever been in my adult life. These stones report for duty in story after story. The garden, a cistern of unsweetened water, time's patina burnished by an effort to remember. Such effort renewed at each national anniversary, where seagulls glide over the field of slaughter to uncover another trail of poems. Time is a hoarder that gathers us together behind the box hedge to remember glory, to define a lost cause or a cause renewed at the hour of remembrance. We remember our prayers and the seagulls' rage, so careful now so conscious of the past, that we may not create yet more victims. What lasts in a republic is the living. And so, in this age, I remember the living on this cold, grassy ledge. A shuffle of wet tiles, history's lovely aquamarine. All the weapons lie abandoned after battle, like the leaves of Cecil Oak, Dar Gaelach, that scatter in a sudden burst of wind. We seem drawn to history fatally, the way troubled families want to pace across the same old ground in the hope of comfort from what comes round. I find an empty bench where history doubled back and came to life in a fantasia of warm metal. Oisin Kelly's mythic swan children now seem like children abandoned in a refugee camp or great famine, arms hanging loosely in great bronze petals. After all the troubles, Politics wants to make peace with art, but memory is immovable in a stiff breeze. James Connolly's beautiful life, the high aesthetic of Peirce, the gift of 3 buttons from Con Colbert's volunteer uniform, Thomas MacDonagh's verse. Listen, in this remembering place, I pick strange names to add to the forgotten dead. Willie Redmond explaining how at the Ulster line in front of Plug Street the Southerners arrived and words of love between 2 Irelands were said before slaughter followed the young. And Harold Mooney of the RAMC, his shattered left thigh, should remind us of how the unsung are left to die in a free state of dying slowly. All their untold stories haunt me still. Permit me to remember the dead on the wrong side of revolution, the part they played. Mothers from another continent come here to rest. Memory is a kind of cradle. Memory is a giant beach in a sunlit meadow. I watch a new migrant child reach into this restored, reflecting pool, his outline traced in a cruciform pool of disturbed shadows. What can he know, this child of worldly exile, of the purpose of this city centre park? How can you or I propose a better Ireland, a safer shelter in the quiet meadow? Here in this Irish world, in the last place where God found us useful, we have a duty to make a nest, not an ill-advised pageant or a national barricade. When the midday sun breaks through, my eyes rest on harp and acorn, on trumpet and bronze hands, on things a family without our history understands.